Hey guys, welcome to Cast a Brass, and today starts the series on my favorite fishing lures when I'm fishing the river for smallmouth bass. I have been fishing for over 45 years, and the smallmouth bass is my number one targeted fish I fish for. They're hard hitters, they're hard fighters, they're obliged to catch in my opinion. And I've caught a lot out of the rivers around here in Kentucky before. Some out of the Tennessee rivers as well, and I'm going to put together a little series from top to bottom, my favorite lures, whether it's top water all the way down to the bottom. And the reel that I'm using, this is a Silverhawk 2 by Fenwick rod. This is a medium light action with a fast tip on it. This is my favorite spinning rod for river fishing, and I got a little Cast King spinning reel on it, and I've got Pissy Fun 10-pound test braid on, and I've got 8-pound test mono fluorocarbon, whichever one you prefer to use. Fluorocarbon sinks, it does. Monofilament hit a float, but with 8-pound test it really doesn't make that much difference. That's my opinion. But today we've got the Baby Torpedo. It's number 3 on the list of my favorite top water lures when I'm fishing for smallmouth bass. Will we catch any? I don't know. I seriously doubt it. It's 97 degrees. We've been in a heat wave for over 2 weeks. Temperatures rising up to 110, 111. We've not had rain in 3.5 weeks. But I'm still going to show you my technique when I'm using the torpedo in the river. That way, if you're getting into fishing, hopefully I'll give you some tips that'll help you. So let's get over to the river, get in some current, get in some pockets of water, and I'll show you how I use the Baby Torpedo. Okay guys, we're standing in some current right now. You can see we got one pocket right down here below us, and then we've got a pretty good sized pocket right up here. Now a lot of times bait fish will be traveling this, it'll be hanging in it. If you've ever waded out into current like this right here, you'll see a lot of the small bait fish darting around. And if you're targeting like river smallmouth, like right at daybreak, late of evening when that sun is going behind the trees and you got your torpedo on, and I come up to a spot like this, them smallmouth will move out of these deeper areas right here, and they'll be hanging right off the edge of the shallow chunk rocks right in here, waiting to ambush that bait fish. So the way I usually do it, cast them to the farthest bank, let it sit there for about a second or two, and then every second I'll just give it a pop, and I just let that current pull that torpedo down river toward me. I'm really not forcing it to me, I'm just letting it drift in that current. That way if there's any smallmouth laying in it, I'm going to go over it, or they're going to see it and they're going to come up and they're going to take the bait. Then on my second cast, I'll make a further cast right up the middle. Every second to 2 seconds, just give it a nice little pop. That's all you got to do. Let it sit there for a second, and then I'll switch it up and I'll give it a couple of pops. Just like one, and then I'll just 2 or 3 pops, let it sit there, and then I'll just give it one more good cast right up my left side on the bank, and I repeat, and I will do the same thing. That way I've got that whole section right there covered. I know if there was any feeding smallmouth in that area right there, I pretty much had it all covered by starting at the farthest bank, working it over to the closest bank on the shoreline that I'm at. We're going to be using this same little neck right here as another example. If you're wading downriver, you've been coming downriver wade fishing, and you get to an area like this where the current is starting to show and then the swift water is starting to break and it's kind of bottlenecking up, what I like doing is I like casting that farthest bank over. I'll get that torpedo in there, I'll let them rings break to about 2 foot round, and then I'll just start giving it nice little pops. You may want to double cast a spot like this, kind of get aggressive with it, give it a couple, let it set. But don't force the lure back towards you. Let that current of that river wash it around for you. I usually just set and I don't even reel. I set and let that current pull it around. Does it take a little bit? Yeah, it does. but it pays off a lot of times. They will come up and they will eat it. Okay, now we're fishing along the edge of a big pocket right here. You can wade up this side right over here, but it is extremely deep over in here. Got a lot of kudzu and stuff, can't get around the edge of that bank. So what I like doing is I like doing just straight across cast, getting into those dark areas like on the other side, letting it set for a second, give it a couple pops, let it set. Allowing that torpedo to sit there for a second or two is key to letting that smallmouth, if they hear it, they can zoom in on it, know exactly where it's coming from, and giving them a chance to come up and eat the bait. What I see people doing wrong. I've been fishing with people before, or I've came across people that has been throwing torpedoes and they'll cast it out, and when it hits, they bring hit through there. It actually looks like a real torpedo headed toward a ship to hit, or they look like they got a musky lure on bringing it in. There's no need of ripping that torpedo in. Take your time. Always remember to flip it out. Let it set just for a second. I let them rings get about 2 foot wide in a circle. Then I start working in slowly. Yeah, I'll change it up. I'll give it a couple of pops and let it set. Or I'll just give it one good pop and set. It's just all the presentation. See what the fish wants. Do they want it just a steady pop as you're bringing it in? Or do they want a couple quick pops and let it sit there for 2, maybe 3 seconds? Or do they just want a continuous small action pop, just like that right there? The fish will tell you what they want, but one thing a fish doesn't want, they do not want you bringing that in, skip and hit across the top of the water. Another thing I see people doing when they're fishing, they won't fish the deeper sections. They'll flip over to the side, they'll make a good cast to the shoreline, they'll work it like they should, bringing it in off that bank, and then when they get away from the cover that they see, they'll just go ahead and they'll just rip it in, and they'll just hit around the edges of the bank. Now, I've caught some of my biggest smallmouth casting right in the middle of a big pocket of water. They'll be laying there in the middle. They'll be just settled down on the bottom. And if they see an easy meal coming across the top and they're hungry, they're going to come up and get it. So never be afraid to cast right in the middle of a river when you're using topwater baits, no matter if you're using a popper, torpedo, a dog walker, whatever you may be using. Don't just cast the rocks on the bank or the weed lines on the bank or a tree out in the water. Hit out in the middle as well, and it'll pay off for you. You can see the current shooting down through there, the show. Never pass up a spot like this. It may be 1, 2, 2.5 foot deep. If I'm working my way downriver, again, I'll make a cast over in the eddy section, just like this. I'll do my steady pops with it. A lot of times you can't leave it laying. As soon as it hits, I start working it because it's going to have that drift on it. When it gets over in the current, I'll let the current do the work. I'm not even reeling. I'm just letting my lure pop along. I'm just popping that torpedo as it's moving across current. And then when it once gets out in the middle, again, you've got the stress of the river against the lure, and you don't have to make regular big pops with it. Just small ones is going to make that lure have the action that you need on it. And never pace up current like this right here when you're using top water. It can be some of the funnest, and it can add more fish to your day. Well guys, that is a look at how I use a torpedo in the river. Been using one of these many years, and it is my top 3 topwater lures when I'm targeting smallmouth. I gave you a few little pointers how I use it, whether I'm using it in current, in pockets, and so on, and I hope that helps you out. And you know, if you're just getting into fishing, or you've never tried a torpedo in the river stuff, you don't know what you're missing out on. So I hope you stay tuned for number 2 that's going to be coming up. Until next time, stay safe out there on the river, guys. Be careful in this heat right here, and we'll see you right here in the next one. Have yourself a great day. When bait fish is moving up, they'll be laying there waiting on it. So when I'm throwing a torpedo, I'll move up,